Hey there, it's Krystal Everdeen, and today I'm going to show you how to crochet this little boho crossbody purse. For this project, I'm using size 4 yarn from the brand Loops and Threads, as well as a size 5mm hook. And the first thing that I'm going to do is grab my yarn and create a slip knot. After I've created that slip knot, I'm going to chain 3. So 1, 2, and 3, and then from here I'm actually going to go into the very first chain that I created and slip stitch through it. And once I slip stitch through it, I'm going to have this little cluster right here, and although it might be difficult to find, you need to find the center of that little cluster or circle that you just made. And once you do, you're going to put your hook through it and create a double crochet from it. And once you've created your first one, you're going to go into the center stitch again and create yet another double crochet. And you're just going to continue doing this and make a total of 10 double crochets within that one stitch. And I know it's going to be a little bit hard to find it, but you're just pretty much going to stick your hook into the center of that little cluster and find that middle stitch. And once you have created 10 double crochets within that middle stitch, you're going to slip stitch into the very first double crochet that you had made in order for you to complete that row. And then from there you're going to chain 1 and start a new row, and this new row is going to consist of extended double crochets. Now if you've seen some of my previous crochet videos, or you're going to watch some more of my crochet videos, sometimes I call this triple crochet because I always forget that it's actually extended double crochet. But yeah, so you're going to create an extended double crochet, and then you're going to chain 2, skip a stitch, and then create another extended double crochet. And if you're unfamiliar with what an extended double crochet is, it's similar to a double crochet just with one more step to make it longer. And this is what it looks like. It's just a taller double crochet because what you do is yarn over, go through the stitch, yarn over, go back through a stitch, yarn over through 1 loop, yarn over through 2 loops, and then yarn over through the last 2 loops. So the extra part of the double crochet is that you go through 1 loop first after you go back through the stitch. And if you are unfamiliar with any of these stitches and you're fairly new to crochet, I do have a crocheting for beginners video that I will link in the description box below, so you can go ahead and watch that. Probably watch some easier tutorials first and then come back to this one. Alrighty, so I'm not going to go all the way around because we need this to be a semicircle and not a full circle. So once it is a semicircle, go ahead and stop. And in order for you to create this semicircle, that's all you have to do. You just have to stop at the point where it's flat on the bottom and round on the top. And then you have the basis for your little flap for your purse. And once you're at this point, we're just going to build more and more rows on top of this to make it larger and larger until it's the size that you want it to be. So it totally depends on how big you want to make this purse. That's how wide your lid is going to be, or rather how wide your lid is going to be, that's how wide your purse is going to be. So yeah, from here I chained 1 and then flipped the project over, and then I decided to make a row of double crochets. So within every opening of the previous row, I'm going to make 3 double crochets within those openings. That way it's nice and filled in, because the style that I'm going for, I kind of want to alternate with like a big gap and then a solid row, and then a row with a big gap and then a solid row, something like that, just because I think the design is more intricate like that. But to be honest, I will confess to you that while I was filming this, I was just making it up as I went along. So I do not have a pattern for this. I barely even remember what I did next. So if everything seems rather random, that's because it is. Again, I just made it up as I went along. but it's not that complicated, I think. So hopefully you're able to follow along easily. If not, you can always pause and rewind, pause and rewind. That is what's great about YouTube videos. You could just pause it, rewind it. You could even watch it in slow motion if you want to. There is an option when you go to the little settings button at the bottom of the video. You could actually set it to slow motion. Just a thought. But anyway, now that I'm at the very last stitch of the row, I'm going to make one last double crochet and finish off the row. And this is what the project looks like so far. Again, it's an alternation between solid and gap stitches. So I started off kind of solid in the middle, and then gaps with the extended double crochet, and then solid again with the double crochet. And now I'm going to make loops. And in order to make loops, I chain 4, skip a stitch, and then slip stitch into the next one to create the loop. So that's my little loop right here. And then after that, instead of just creating a loop from there, I like to slip stitch into the next stitch right after, like so, and then create my next loop, created by chaining 4, skipping a stitch, and then slip stitching into the next one. And yeah, that's really it. These are kind of tiny loops. If you want your loops to be larger, then all you have to do is chain more than 4, and yeah, just basically do the same thing. So chain 4 if you're going to make loops like me, then skip a stitch, and then slip stitch into the next one, then slip stitch into one more, and then chain 4, 3, 4, skip a stitch, slip stitch into the next stitch, then slip stitch into the one after that, and then chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, then skip a stitch, slip stitch into the next one, slip stitch into one more, then chain 4, 2, 3, 4, skip a stitch, and then slip stitch into the next one, slip stitch into one more, and that just so happens to be the very last stitch. So I just went into that last stitch, chained 1, and this is what the project looks like so far. And I decided to make another row of loops, so I'm going to chain 4, flip the project over, slip stitch into the loop from the previous row, and that's what it looks like. And then from here I'm just going to chain 4 and then slip stitch into the next loop from the previous row, and yeah, just continue doing that for the rest of the row. Very easy. Just chain 4, reach on over to the loop from the previous row and slip stitch, then chain 4, reach on over to the loop from the previous row and slip stitch, chain 4, reach on over, slip stitch, chain 4, reach on over, and slip stitch. So since that's the last stitch of the row, I kind of wanted to make a single crochet to solidify that row and make the ends nice and even. So that's what I did at the very last stitch. And then I chained 1 and decided to do a row of a solid stitch. So I'm going to make this next row comprised of double crochets, and I didn't really make a set amount of double crochets per stitch. I just kind of went inside of each of the loop stitches and made a random number of double crochets, just however many I felt were good enough to fill up the space, I guess. Sometimes I made 3 double crochets inside of the loops, and sometimes I made 4. So if you're a bit confused right here, just know that there was really no rhyme to my reasoning right here. But you could do whatever you want. Again, I just wanted a row of a solid stitch, and I thought this did pretty well. Although there are a few gaps in between, because again, sometimes I made 3 double crochets inside of a stitch, and sometimes I made 4, which filled it up a little bit more. I wasn't really counting or too concerned about it. But if you are and you want to be a perfectionist, then I would say choose a number that you're happy with and then stick to it. That way it could be more consistent. But yeah, this is what my project looks like after that row of double crochet. It does look kind of scalloped, which I think looks kind of cool. And if you want a really tiny purse, then you could stop right here and it'll actually look like a really cool flap to your purse. But if you want a larger purse like mine, well, mine's actually still kind of small, but it's not tiny, so we're gonna have to keep going. And from here I just decided to repeat all the steps that I have already done. So for this row I'm going to make an extended double crochet and then chain 2, then skip a stitch, and then make another extended double crochet, and then chain 2, 1, 2, and then skip a stitch, and then create another extended double crochet, and then chain 2, 2, and then skip a stitch, and then create another extended double crochet, and so on and so forth until you reach the very end of the row. And after you have reached the very end of the row, you're going to make sure that you go into the very last stitch of that row. And after that, this is what the project should look like, something like this. And again, I like to make one row that has large gaps and then the next row a more solid stitch. So for the upcoming row, we are going to be making 3 double crochets inside of each of the gaps that we made when we made the row of extended double crochets. So in every gap we're going to create 3 double crochets. So this is my 3rd double crochet, so I'm going to reach over to the next gap and create another 3 double crochets until I reach the very end of the row. So I'm going to create my last double crochet right here, and then I'm also going to create one more at the very last stitch of the row, just so that the project won't start to curve inward. It does curve outward a little bit, but that's fine. We're gonna fix it once we start working on the actual purse part. Right now it's still the flap of the purse. So yeah, after you've created that row of double crochets, then we're going to make a row of loops again, and it's going to be the same thing. You're going to chain 4, skip a stitch, slip stitch into the next stitch, and then slip stitch into the one after that, and then you're going to chain 4, skip a stitch, and then slip stitch into the next stitch, and then slip stitch into one more stitch, and then chain 4, and so on and so forth until you reach the very end of the row. And this is about the size I want my purse to be, so this is where I'm going to stop. But if you want a larger purse, then you're going to keep going and make the flap as wide as you want your purse to be. So if you want a very, very wide purse, then just keep making more rows and rows. But if you want a rather small and dainty one like mine, then you stop right here. And from where you left off, you're going to now single crochet your way all along the bottom of the semicircle that you just created. And there's not going to be any exact stitches that you can go into. You're going to have to kind of like make it up as you go along. Just make sure that each stitch is evenly spaced out and rather close together, because this is going to be your base for the rest of the project. From here, you're going to build upon the bottom of the semicircle here to create the rest of your purse. So make sure that this is nice and even, and that you go into every single spot that you can to make all the stitches fairly close to one another. So after you have gone through the entire bottom portion of the semicircle, then you're going to flip the project over, chain 1, and then create a new row of single crochet on top of that row of single crochet that you just created. and you're actually just going to keep making rows and rows of single crochet from here on end until you've made the body of your purse. So yeah, after you have reached the end of one row of single crochet, you're going to flip the project over, chain one, and then start another row of single crochet until it grows and grows and grows. And once you're happy with the size of it, that's when you know when to stop. So I'm just going to continue making more and more rows of single crochet on top of previous rows of single crochet until I am happy with the length of the purse. So yeah, I'm just going to continue making more and more rows until I flip the flap over, and then I'm happy with what it looks like. Obviously this is way too short still, so I'm going to keep going. And once I reached this point, I figured, yep, this is the size I want my purse to be, but this is only one side. I need to make a whole other side to fold over to make an actual purse. So I need to make this but double. So what I just made, I have to make it all over again because that's the size I want the purse to be, and I need two sides right here. So I'm going to have to make the same amount of rows that I just made to get to this point. And once I've completed that, then I will be done with my rows and rows of single crochet. So here we go. Now I'm able to fold it and then flip the flap over, and it looks like a little purse. Yay! So once I'm at this point and I have crocheted all my rows of single crochet, it's time to attach the sides together so that this can actually hold stuff. And what you're going to do to attach them together is you're going to line up the sides and then slip stitch the two sides together. And what I'm going to do, you don't have to do at all. So I'm going to slip stitch my way down, then slip stitch my way up, single crochet my way across, slip stitch my way down, slip stitch my way back up, and then create the strap. And I'm only going to do that because I want everything to be in one go, and I don't want to cut the yarn from the yarn ball because I'm going to unravel this project and reuse the yarn for my other tutorial. So what you're going to do, because you're actually doing this because you want to make the purse, is you're going to slip stitch down one side, then detach the yarn from the yarn ball and reattach it to the other side, then slip stitch your way up and then crochet the strap. That way you don't have to do the extra work that I want to do. I don't have to do it. I want to do it because I want everything to be crocheted without having to detach the yarn from the yarn ball. But again, all you have to do is slip stitch your way down from this point, and once you reach the bottom, you're going to detach the yarn from the yarn ball and then reattach it to the other side, and it's going to be easy peasy. So yeah, in order for you to attach the two sides, you need to line them up, and then you're going to put your hook through one side, then through the other side, grab your yarn, bring it through, and then bring it through the loop that is on your hook. And that's how you slip stitch them together. And this is what it looks like. Nice and solid and put together and able to hold stuff. So yeah, from here you're just going to cut the yarn from the yarn ball and then reattach it to the bottom of the other side, so you could slip stitch your way up, and then from there you could make your strap. But for me, I'm going to slip stitch my way back up and then across and then down and then back up to get to this point so I can make my strap. But you don't have to do that. Alrighty then, so now that both sides are attached, I'm going to flip the project inside out just because I think that it looks cleaner when it's inside out. You can see the edges don't protrude out, and I think it looks really cute like that. So I flipped it inside out, and now for the final step, which is to make the strap. And because I want this to be a crossbody bag, this strap needs to be very, very long. So I made a total of 200 chains to make this strap. So from the side right here, I'm just going to chain 200 chains, And then once I've chained 200 chains, I'm going to attach the end to the other side of the purse. And in order to do that, all you have to do is figure out where you would like to attach the strap. I wanted to attach the strap to around the same spot that it's attached on the other side, so I got the corner of the purse and then I slip stitched to attach the strap, and that's it. And because I wanted the strap to be a little bit thicker than just a chain, I went back on the chain with a single crochet just so that it's a little sturdier and also it's a little thicker. That way it doesn't dig into my skin when I wear it, even though I'm not even going to actually like wear it out or anything. I'm just going to film it and then unravel it. But yeah, if you want the strap to be a little bit more sturdy and not dig into your skin as much, then I would suggest making at least one row of single crochet to make it a little bit thicker. And after you have gone across the entire strap, then you can cut the yarn from your yarn ball and complete your project. But again, I'm going to unravel mine, so just ignore the fact that it's still attached to the yarn ball. And if you want to add lining, you can. If you want to add a button, you can. Totally up to you in what other little details you want to add to this purse. I think that adding buttons would look really cute and also be very helpful to make sure that your stuff doesn't fall out. And yeah, that's how I crocheted this little crossbody bag and how you can too. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you found it interesting, entertaining, or helpful, please give it a big thumbs up before you go. And if you enjoy crochet tutorials, I do have a ton of crochet tutorials ranging from beginner friendly to a little bit more advanced like this one. And yeah, you could just check out the rest of my channel. I do have a couple playlists that are dedicated to just crochet videos, so go ahead and give those a watch. And also don't forget to click that red subscribe button if you have not already, so I can see you next time. Bye!